Hey, do you guys think it's true that she's a trapper horse?
Oh, a horse is a horse.
Of course.
Of course, but I don't think Arabians even are trapper horses, are they?
Ladies and gentlemen, the world-famous Lil Sebastian.
What?
Yes!
Oh my God!
Oh my God!
Hello, I'm Mr. Ed.
Mr. Ed was an American icon during the rise of sitcom television in the 1960s. A story about a talking horse and his owner was one that was fantastical enough to draw children in, as well as their parents with the witty comedy. Mr. Ed did not follow the traditional sitcom formula, which often focused around suburban American families and the adventures within their everyday lives. Initially, the show wasn't supposed to be about a talking horse, but rather a television series featuring Francis, a mule who was the star of multiple movies under the title of Francis the Talking Mule. Arthur Lubin, the director on the first 6 Francis films, wanted to continue the character's adventures on television to reach a wider audience after the character was so well received. Despite his dedication to the character, Lubin was ultimately unable to gain the rights to the Francis character. Lubin was unsure on whether to continue his pursuit on producing a television show before his secretary, Sonia Shurness, introduced him to the works of author Walter R. Brooks. Walter Brooks was a children's author best known for his books focusing around Freddy the Pig, a series in which all animals were able to speak with human beings. Brooks had also written several stories under the simple title of The Talking Horse, usually published within Liberty magazine. Negotiations between Lubin and Brooks went seemingly well as the series began development not long after Lubin was introduced to the idea. However, coming into work on television as an independent director, Lubin had little to no expenses to invest into the series. Using his contacts through Universal, with whom Lubin had worked on the Francis movies for, the persistent director was able to reach George Burns, a comedian who had just started a production company with his wife, Gracie Allen, under the name of the McCadden Corporation. Burns was enthralled with the idea and provided the project with a budget of $70,000 to shoot the pilot episode. The pilot episode was shot at the McCadden studio in Hollywood, with actor Scott McKay playing the role of Wilbur Pope. Even with a pilot episode filmed and a cast ready to continue working, the director reached another roadblock as he was unable to sell the show to any major network, posing only one solution: to sell the show into syndication. The syndication of a television show is akin to that of a work being in the public domain, whereas it can be aired on any television network that held a license for the show's broadcasting. Lubin was able to reach syndication on over 100 different networks with the help of a sponsorship deal made with the Studebaker-Packard Corporation, a car manufacturer. As the show was seen to be moving along, the cast and crew continued to work on the series, recasting the 2 major roles. In the official series, the late Alan Young would play the role of Mr. Ed's owner under the name of Wilbur Post instead of Pope, while the title character of Mr. Ed would be portrayed by a Palomino horse named Bamboo Harvester and voiced by former Western film actor Alan Lane. In supporting roles, Connie Hines would portray Wilbur's wife Carol, while Larry Keating and Edna Skinner would fill the roles of Roger and Kay Addison, neighbors to the couple. The series began broadcasting on January 5th, 1961 and aired 26 episodes, gaining high popularity among the public. Due to this rise in popularity, the network CBS approached Lubin about picking up the series and airing exclusively on their network. Syndication stopped for Mr. Ed as The Horse and His Owner moved to prime time on CBS on October 1st of 1961, making the show one of the few series that were picked up by major networks out of syndication. Like many sitcoms of the decade, there was often no overarching plot during the run of the show, aside from recurring characters and themes that would appear. The show focused around Mr. Ed, a talking Palomino horse who was abandoned by his previous owners within the barn behind their vacant house. Fortunately, newlyweds Wilbur and Carol Post soon move into the abandoned house, discovering Ed living in the barn. Carol expresses her desire to get rid of Ed and makes off to call a handler to take him away, leaving Wilbur alone with the horse. Wilbur bonds with Ed by cleaning and brushing him before the handler appears, with Wilbur hesitantly helping the handler lead Ed out of the barn, before Ed winks at Wilbur, pretending to be sick in order for the handler to refuse purchasing the horse from the couple. Giving into her husband's wishes, Carol allows Wilbur to keep Ed and the duo return to the barn to feed Ed. Wilbur begins talking indirectly to the horse, explaining how he always wanted a pony when he was little.
I guess it's because when I was a little boy, I wanted a pony. Of course, it's been a long time since I was a little boy.
It's been a long time since I was a pony.
Wilbur runs off to tell his wife, who is hesitant to believe him, humoring him by waiting for Ed to talk, resulting in nothing but silence from the horse. Carol exits and leaves the two alone again, with Wilbur questioning Ed on why he wouldn't talk to Carol. Ed explains,
You made me look like such a fool. You've got to talk to my wife. Why did you talk to me?
Because I like you.
before Wilbur asks Ed about his ability to talk.
This whole thing is fantastic. I just don't understand it.
Don't try to. It's bigger than both of us.
This is one of the only times in which Ed's ability to talk is questioned, instead often being avoided as a talking point on the show. However, even with the audience accepting the avoidance of explaining Ed's ability to speak, they were still interested to learn how exactly the crew-made bamboo harvester moved his lips to give the impression of speaking. The most popular theory centered around the idea of the trainer spreading peanut butter across bamboo's gums, causing the horse to move its lips in order to consume the peanut butter. In reality, the method used to get Bamboo to move his lips was the same method Arthur Lubin had used in his Francis films, having the trainer simply place a piece of nylon thread within his mouth, sticking to the tongue of the horse as he attempts to wiggle it out with his lips. Even though Bamboo was trained to follow this method, he quickly caught on and soon learned to move his lips on demand after receiving cues from a trainer by a tap on his hoof. The mystery surrounding the title character did not end here though, as another popular rumor began to spread amongst the public. Over the course of the series, Mr. Ed was never aired in color, instead always being presented in the traditional monochrome tone. Because of this, rumor began to spread that the role of Ed wasn't played by a horse at all, but rather by a zebra named Amelia who was from a nearby animal park. Audience members theorized the methods in which this could be covered up, suggesting that the zebra only appeared to be as tall as a horse due to Alan Young's smaller stature. Despite the rumors, they remained simply that, with the majority of the public knowing of Bamboo's harvester's role on the show. The series would continue on for 6 seasons, airing a total of 143 episodes. During the course of the show, Larry Keating passed away, causing the role of the neighbors to be replaced by Leon Ames and Florence McMichael as Winnie and Colonel George Kirkwood, with George being Wilbur's former commanding officer during his time in the military. The chemistry between the lead duo and their personalities is what most episode plots originated from. Ed was a known troublemaker, consistently only talking to Wilbur in person, but this would not stop him from talking indirectly to others, such as over the phone or through a wall or door. This running gag is usually what got Wilbur into trouble, based exclusively on Ed's actions. Wilbur's clumsiness and unawareness also caused trouble for the two, as Wilbur would often continue to talk to his horse even after someone entered the room without him realizing it. Some of the most popular episodes of the series consist of Ed attempting to break out of the barn after being locked in when caught stealing brownies, Ed attempting to recall a ban on horses in the neighborhood, and Ed calling the SPCA to report animal abuse after Carol ties Ed to a carriage when Wilbur refuses to purchase a new car. Mr. Ed also starred in several special episodes, such as Ed's Christmas Carol and Wilbur Gets the Message, a partnership with the United States Treasury in order to advocate the purchasing of savings bonds. The last episode of the series aired on February 6, 1966, with a plot revolving around Ed expressing his desire to go to college in order to become a doctor, much to Wilbur's disdain. The show was not cancelled for budgetary or scandal reasons, but rather all evidence points to the show simply being cancelled due to low ratings. These low ratings were partially due to conflicts with the scheduling of other CBS programs, resulting in the show often moving time slots with every season, and sometimes mid-season. Alongside this, the final scheduling change during the last season caused the show to air on Sunday evenings. Sunday evening airtime was often dedicated to sports programming on CBS, a time slot where viewership often reached an all-time high. However, due to this spike in viewership, the number of viewers would drastically decrease for the following time slots, as the viewers would often be engaged in other activities after the sports games. Following the cancellation of the show, Bamboo Harvester retired and the remaining cast went on to other projects. Even with the series cancelled, reruns were still popular with the American public, along with a collection of stories featuring the character that was written by Walter Brooks himself. In 1970, Bamboo Harvester was thought to be dead after an unpublicized euthanasian, buried at Snodgrass Farm in Oklahoma. It was known that when he began retirement, Bamboo was suffering from a number of age-related ailments, but Alan Young recounts a different story. Young would frequently visit Bamboo in his retirement, where he lived with his trainer Lester Hilton. According to Young, Hilton was out of town, leaving a temporary caregiver to look after Bamboo. Young states that the caregiver may have seen Bamboo laying on the floor, unable to get up due to his frailty and old age, administering a tranquilizer to the horse to calm his nerves. With his weakened state, the tranquilizer was too much for Bamboo's body to bear, and he passed a few hours later. Young claims that he stayed quiet about the incident due to the surfacing of a different story. In February of 1979, a horse that was believed to be Bamboo Harvester passed away in Oklahoma, causing the media to publish stories about Mr. Ed's supposed passing. It is now known that this horse was indeed not Bamboo Harvester, but rather a horse similar in appearance, one that was used by the CBS production team to take still posed pictures on the set for press releases. Mr. Ed as a brand stagnated for a while before the name resurfaced in May of 1986, yet it would not be in a way that many would have expected. Ohio preacher Jim Brown and his business associate Greg Hudson were infamous among their congregation for lambasting secular music that they claimed had satanic messages hidden inside, often calling for the youth to burn their cassette tapes and records. The practice of destroying secular music due to supposed satanic influence was not a new concept at the time. However, it was one piece of music in particular that Brown gained much criticism for. Pastor Brown and Hudson put forth their claim that the theme song to Mr. Ed was also one of the songs that contained satanic messages if played in reverse. Brown cited phrases such as, "Satan's a singer."
You never heard of a talking horse? Well, listen to this. I am Mr. Ed.
And sing the song for Satan.
That is, of course, unless the horse is the famous Mr. Ed.
Were audible when listening to the reverse track. After receiving much harsh criticism and news coverage, Brown quickly backed down from his claims, stating that, quote, "Satan can be an influence whether they, the songwriters, know it or not. We don't think they did it on purpose, and we're not getting down on Mr. Ed. That would be like kicking baseball out of America." End quote. After the incident, the public knowledge of the series went into decline again, with reruns being seldom aired as television technology transitioned entirely into color presentations. February 17th of 2004, CNN broke the news about a new Mr. Ed revival that was being developed by the Fox television network, which was set to air the same year. Within the new series, Sherman Hemsley, best known for his role as George Jefferson on The Jeffersons and All in the Family, was cast to provide the new voice of Ed, hoping to give it, quote, "an urban sensibility," end quote.
New York City, the noise, the lights, the excitement. Maybe a little too much excitement for a 15-year-old girl. That's why Wilbur Pope moved his family out to this farm. My farm. By the way, I'm Mr. Ed. Man, I'm gonna have my hooves full with this one.
Starring with Hemsley would be David Allen Bash and Sherilyn Fenn as Wilbur and Carol, whose surname would be changed back to Pope as it was in the pilot for the original series. Though a larger studio was backing the project at the time, the series never became fully developed, with only a 20-minute pilot episode remaining online. Almost a decade later, it was announced in 2012 that Waterman Entertainment was in the works of developing a new film based on Mr. Ed. The press release stated that the movie would be a mixture of live-action footage and CGI, meaning that the role of Ed may not be portrayed by a real-life horse. Just a week before the press release, Waterman Entertainment had issued another release stating that the studio was working on developing a modern version of the animated film The Brave Little Toaster. But 6 years later, news of either property moving further into development is nowhere to be found. Mr. Ed was a novelty at the time. It introduced the American public to fantasy elements within a sitcom, a formula that often stayed as close to the realm of normality as possible. With the introduction of such a brand new idea, Mr. Ed paved the way for newcomers, such as Gilligan's Island, Lost in Space, and Bewitched, to reach the television screens of millions of Americans as well. In the modern age, it is not uncommon to see film and television in which a character has some sort of supernatural ability or power. Talking animals and objects are accepted as simple suspension of disbelief for viewers now. But for Mr. Ed, he was a stranger to the viewing public of the 1960s, with almost no feat similar being done consistently on screen before, which is why Ed had to use his way with words, his wit, and charm to open the public's heart to a talking horse.